Welcome to The Freight Break with your host, Dan Lindsey, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the trucking industry. We're talking real conversations, real relationships, and real insight that keep the wheels turning.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to The Freight Break. I am your host, Dan Lindsey. This is the flagship podcast of the Broker Carrier Summmit, the BCS Freight Network, and the most trusted network in freight. We have a great show for you today. My good friend Rob McCutcheon over at TAFS Factoring is going to be with us today. Also, I wanted to give you all a quick update on the Broker Carrier Summmit coming up in Orlando, October 28th to the 30th. We have just crossed 100 attendees, which is the fastest that we have ever hit that milestone. The breakdown is about 45% carriers and 45% brokers and about 10% vendors so far. So brokers and carriers are showing up already to sign up for the Broker Carrier Summmit in Orlando. It's going to be a fantastic time, shaping up to be our most intentional and best event yet. So if you are a broker, carrier, if you're a driver or a dispatcher, if you are in the transportation or logistics industry at all, you need to be with us in Orlando this October. So looking forward to seeing you all there. Let's go ahead and kick it over to TIE Software.
Meet TIE Software's workflow automation, built to help LTL and FTL freight brokers boost productivity. Use custom prompts to automate repetitive tasks like status updates, carrier changes, and shipment alerts right in the platform. Manage operations with automated scheduling, carrier management, and real-time updates. Workflow automation removes bottlenecks, freeing you up to grow your business. Best of all, it's easy to set up and use. No coding or tech skills required. Choose your workflows and TIE does the rest. Book a demo today and see how TIE makes efficiency happen.
All right, welcome everyone to this segment of Breaking It Down. I am joined today with my good friend Rob McCutcheon with TAFS Factoring. Rob, are you still considered with TAFS, or how is the eCapital conversation going on?
Yeah, we're still TAFS for the time being, but definitely an eCapital company, if you want to put it that way. But we're still TAFS. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can for our clients to make sure they have the same experience. And so we're kind of working through that as we go through the acquisition process and integration stuff.
Excellent. Well, my friend, I'm very happy to have you on the show today. We're going to be breaking down the cost of trucking, probably the least sexy, least exciting topic in transportation. But we got some big news in recent weeks. The ATRI has come out with a new study talking about the cost of trucking. Talk to us about what you're seeing from your perspective as a factoring company and what drivers and carriers are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, from the financial perspective, that's kind of the part that we always look at with our carriers is how can they lower that cost for every single load that they carry, whether that's the maintenance that they're working on, the fuel costs, the actual cost of doing back office business, billing, collecting, all the fun stuff that everybody really never wants to talk about. We definitely are always keeping an eye on that type of stuff to make sure that, hey, is there something else that we can be doing to help our carriers lower that cost? Because at the end of the day, the freight rates where they are right now, just staying completely stagnant and not moving at all, more than, $20 here and there. You have to look at every little other piece of your operation. I think, as you've probably talked to several other people in the industry is, during this whole, downturn or flatness of the market, a lot of people have looked internally at their own businesses and they've said, well, how can I do this better? How can I do this more efficiently? How can I spend less money on exactly what I'm doing here? And like you've seen, AI has just come up a huge amount of times, all the technology that's out there. And so people are trying to do a lot of cost analysis. And so, anytime we can help do that for any of our clients, we're happy to do so because at the end of the day, we succeed only when they do.
Yeah, well, and efficiency seems to be the name of the game. I remember even as recently as Indianapolis at the most recent BCS, people were having multiple different conversations with providers and how they can be more efficient, how they can streamline their operations. One of the things that was interesting about this recent study released by ATRI was overall, it seems like costs to operate a trucking company have decreased. It says, well, I think it was by 0.4%, but that was largely driven, oddly enough, by fuel. Fuel costs are the main downward driver in this. Everything else, back office costs, operational costs, maintenance costs, rose 3.6% over the last year. So talk to us about, you mentioned the carriers becoming more efficient. How are they becoming more efficient?
I think the big thing you talk about fuel in general is fuel costs are always going to go up and down. But what you can control as a carrier is where you go and where you're swiping your cards. And so I think one of the biggest, and I talked to Adam Wingfield about this exact same thing the other day. One of the biggest things that carriers fail to do when the market is going really well for them is to really dig in on every single fuel transaction that they make. And by that, I mean, if you have a fuel card, and most of the carriers out there do have a fuel card, but if you have one of those fuel cards and you are not utilizing a fuel finder or going to the best priced location along your routes, along your lanes that you're traditionally covering, then you are leaving money on the table. And so I think one of the biggest things a carrier can do is to really dig in on, hey, plan this trip out. Make sure I know how much fuel is in my tank right now, where I need to fuel to where I'm going to get the best price along this lane. And because if you think about it, when you're putting 200 gallons into a tank and you're getting a 12-cent discount versus somewhere else where you're getting an 18-cent discount, but 200 gallons, that's a chunk of money right there. And you're doing that, 2 to 3 times a week, and then however many times a year, those numbers really, really add up quickly. And so I think the best thing you can possibly do for as a trucking company is be disciplined and where you're fueling. Make sure you are getting that best price, and quit overlooking something to just go on convenience. And so a lot of times they don't plan the trip out and you stop at this stop. It costs you a little bit more money to fuel up there. Maybe it costs you a little bit money to get more food at that location. There's all kinds of costs that just really add up quickly. And I think being extremely disciplined and looking at every single aspect of that route is a big, big key.
Yeah. Well, discipline is extremely important. Also being intentional, as you mentioned, routing your trucks correctly. I think that's a lot easier. Being disciplined is a lot easier in lean times, right? Because you literally have to be. I was talking to a business owner a couple of years ago, and things were going really well for him. He was buying more trucks. He had plenty of customers keeping him busy. Basically had minimal downtime on his fleet, and he was just spending money hand over fist. He got a little loose with the checkbook and really put himself in a bind in the last couple of years, and he had to own that. And so that's very important to stay disciplined, not only in the lean times, but especially when times are good. Because when times are good, the more disciplined you are, the more money you save, and the more money you can put back for what has been a 3 or 4 year rainy day in freight. Talk to us about that. What are you guys seeing on the macro trends, call it, when it comes to cost per load and mileage and all that?
Yeah, so the things that we kind of look at are two pretty kind of like the main indicators. One is how many new authorities are coming into the market, and then the other one is what is that average invoice size? What is the average invoice that you're sending back to your customer? And so we have a really good insight into that because of the data that we collect as a factoring company. One of the things that really affects the number of authorities coming into the market is something that's more subjective, and that's confidence in the market. And so you're not going to come into this market and start your own trucking company unless you feel like the market is going to be in your favor. Some of them still come in, but at the end of the day, you're always still looking at that overall market. What are the average freight rates? What are those things that are out there? And you want to try to hit that market at a high whenever you're making that decision. And so we see that as a confidence metric. And so one of the metrics that we look at is how many new authorities that are coming in. And so right now we're seeing like less and less. This whole year it's gone down a little bit every month. We saw a spike in May of it coming up, and then in June it went back down again. We're hoping that July, August is going to be an increase in new authorities coming in, but that number in general for probably the last 2 years has not shot up or down too much at all.
Is there a cycle to the authority, carriers gaining new authority?
Yeah, typically it almost goes along with kind of the freight spikes in prices. And so March is typically kind of your biggest increase in the authorities coming in. Usually you see a little ramp up starting at the end of February, and then March it kind of ramps up. April about the same as March. May kind of stays in there, and then usually June and July you kind of see it decrease a little bit, and then come back up again in September, October, August, September, October is where you see the biggest spikes. And so that kind of goes along with a lot of the freight, the stuff that happens in the market. But I think most of the time we see the typical, line graph going across our bar there. And then we just try to compare year over year. And we say, all right, well, what was this month last year? And then, what was it the year before that? And for the large part, it stays pretty similar over the last 2 years. It's been very, very similar. We feel like once we can start seeing maybe 3 months in a row of higher freight rates, then you're going to see a lot more confidence out there, and then you're going to start seeing those authority numbers increase. And so you talk about the freight rates. That's the other side of this is, we have seen since last September, those freight rates have been year over year, almost no movement at all. It's just been line, but that's better than the previous year where it was just down, down, down. It has been just even as can be.
So in your mind, from where you sit, are you looking at this is a more stable market, or are we seeing more and more of the uncertainty that surrounded 2024, call it?
Yeah, I would actually lean towards being more positive and it being stable. I would say it's not going to go lower than this. I think at the end of the day, we have seen it stay at the same rate since last September, and I think that's been very, very consistent. It's also very odd because usually the rates do fluctuate quite a bit more than they have since last September. But at the same time, we do feel that at some point here, we're going to see that demand increase. Maybe it's a lot of the uncertainty around tariffs. Maybe it's a lot of the uncertainty around a lot of these other things that are outside factors. And because a lot of it is subjective on this is because you have, it's confidence. At the end of the day, it's as a carrier, do you have confidence that this is going to make the big difference? And I really think that the fact that it has been, consistent as long as it has, doesn't hurt. It also doesn't really help at the same time. It's kind of just, we're sitting in that spot right there where, we're consistently going to get the same number of authorities. And people are like, well, if I know that if I can make it at the rates they're at right now, then I don't think they're going to go down. And so I feel confident in my abilities to make something succeed, rather than just waiting around to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned freight rates. Let's talk about where freight rates are and where they've been. But I want to take a different approach to it, maybe. Let's talk about the inverse of freight rates, and let's talk about load volumes. So we're seeing in the market right now I think, and then again, this came out in the ATRI study, is that deadhead mileage rose almost 20% among carriers. Is that because there are fewer loads right now and there's more carriers chasing loads? Obviously, with more loads to cover, rates are going to decrease. It's an inverse correlation. So talk to us about load volumes.
No, I think you're right on that aspect, and I'd also throw in the fact that I think that when carriers are looking to the data that's out there, and then when the market gets tight, this is typically what they do is they start comparing and contrasting and working with different brokers, different shippers, and things out there, and they're willing to travel a little bit further in order to get a better freight rate into an area that they really want to be in. And so I think some of it is some carriers are getting more disciplined with it, and other ones are looking at the data that's around them and saying, hey, maybe I should change where I'm hauling out of, or maybe I should look at different places that I normally haven't been before, and I'm getting out of my normal routine. But I think a lot of it's going to be data driven. But at the same time, it's also volume, and it's capacity at the end of the day, and supply and demand is always going to be the number one indicator and number one driver of behavior when it comes out to the market.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned carriers and their relationships with their brokers. You guys are an intermediary of sorts when it comes to carriers and brokers. So what are you guys seeing in terms of broker carrier relations, whether it's carriers using fewer brokerages to find loads? Are you still seeing a lot of one-off transactions with carriers with brokers? And how are those conversations going?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different things to unpack on this, and so one of them is we've talked about this, and you've probably almost every one of your shows you've talked about the broker transparency stuff that's been out there. I think that has not helped kind of the goal of Broker Carrier Summit in a lot of ways, just because it's just more distrust and more things that are out there when it comes to that type of stuff. But we kind of look at it in a multiple different ways fashion. So one of the things that we try to do as a factoring company is we try to put our carriers in the best position to work with the brokers that we feel like is going to be less risky for them. And so the only way to reduce risk as a carrier is not less brokers, it's more brokers. To be able to work with more brokers, we tell our carriers, we don't want you to work with and carry more than 20% of your freight with any one broker and or shipper. The reason we do that is it's simply just an odds game. It's a numbers game. You look at some of the brokerages out there, and it's mainly the large mega brokers that you have to worry about this with. But if you have a claim and you have claim offsets on one load and you're carrying 50% of your loads with that brokerage, you've basically put yourself out of business really, really quickly unless that claim can be resolved while your money is coming in. And so we tell them to diversify as much as possible because of that, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and put yourself in a tough situation, because at the end of the day, a claim is going to happen. Every carrier is going to have one at some point. And so all that you can do is just make sure that you're setting yourself up to be in the best position to where that claim is not going to sink you or really stunt your cash flow and make it to where you can't make a payment on a truck or insurance payment or be able to buy fuel or whatever that may be. So that's one of the biggest things that we look at when it comes to it.
Well, there's two things that I always talk about with carriers. You have to know your numbers, right? Which is a challenge for many. Know your numbers, and you have to know your customers. And that piece in particular, when it comes to broker carrier relations, I think the number of carriers that I talk to every week, every month, that don't view their brokers as their customers is staggering to me, because they're the ones paying you to do a service. Talk to us about how carriers can maximize the relationships with their brokers so that, as you mentioned, having more brokers in your portfolio, having more customers in your arsenal is better for you than only working with a small handful of customers until you find yourself on the low board every day, taking a load from God knows who says they're a broker, right? So how do they balance that? How do they balance that going out and getting multiple customers, multiple different brokers who have freight with still having a relationship with them so that they know whether or not they're putting themselves needlessly at risk?
Yeah, I think, this is where I think the Broker Carrier Summit is such a great thing, is the fact that you can actually build a relationship with someone. And at the end of the day, this is a relationship business, and you have to build trust with people. And so when you're looking for brokerages out there, rates aren't necessarily, you can't take offense to a rate if you're offered a rate at a certain price. The broker is trying to do something for their business, and sometimes they're going to make a little bit more margin than other times. But at the end of the day, if you're a carrier, all you can do is have a great relationship, deliver your services to those folks, and be a professional. And at the end of the day, when you build a good relationship with a broker, they're going to do right by you because they want to have, very reliable carriers in their portfolio. And then you throw this whole thing, like you just mentioned, it's fraud. You worry about double brokering, you worry about all these other things. If you know that you're reaching out directly to a broker and you're not going on a load board and you're not, going into a situation where you're getting cold called by someone, and you already know that person, you're going to have a lot more comfortability with knowing that, there's less risk for me getting into a tough situation, and vice versa from the broker's perspective. If you know this carrier and you're reaching out to this carrier, you've built a relationship, you're way less likely to run into a situation where you're going to get defrauded by some carrier being double brokered, or a fake carrier, or a load theft, or whatever it may be. And so, I think just building a relationship is key. And then, there are tons of places out there to look at data. And if you know that you are getting market price in lanes that you're carrying, then, you don't have to worry about if a broker is trying to get an extra margin on you or not. At the end of the day, if you know that you're get your rate in your lane because you're educated and you know the data, then you're going to be in a much better position to say, okay, well, I don't really care how much margin they're making because I know that I'm getting market price in that lane, and or market price above market price.
Well, and if you're a carrier and you find yourself in a situation where you don't know who you're talking to, or you just want an extra set of eyes on the broker, or the broker, quote unquote, that you're talking to, feel free to send us an email over here at the BCS. We have a number of partners, including TAFS, that can kind of just do some analysis for you. You can email me directly, dan@brokercarriersummit.com. We actually caught somebody trying to defraud a carrier a couple of weeks ago, and we were able to help that carrier get out from under that load and reported the double broker to the appropriate people. So always eager to help. Rob, great talking with you, my friend. One more question before I let you go. Obviously, you guys are very involved with us at the BCS. You guys are sponsoring the finance and legal track again for Orlando. What are you most excited about for the upcoming Broker Carrier Summit in Orlando?
Yeah, I think a really big piece of this for us every single year is the networking piece for us, and that's just meeting as many people as we can, building as much trust as we can with folks. And so we love to talk to brokers. Because as a factoring company, we have to approve credit for brokers for our carriers to factor loads with us. And so we feel much more confident in extending credit to brokers whenever we see them face to face and we talk to them and shake their hand. And the same thing with the carrier perspective is, talking to our carriers. Some of them are our customers already. Some of them are working with other factoring companies, but we just want to build relationships, build trust. And we feel like in the factoring world, and a lot of times in freight, people look past the relationship piece too much. And being able to see people in person, network, talk, have a drink with them, whatever it may be, is still one of the most important things we can possibly do. And us as a factoring company, that's what we believe as well. And so it's going to be a great event. We're happy that it's in Orlando. We have a ton of customers in Orlando. And so we're going to send a good crew of contingent down there to be able to do it. We actually have, under the Capital family, an office in Orlando as well down there. And so we're really excited to have some folks down in Orlando that are going to be able to attend this event and meet as many people as we can.
Very cool. Yeah, it's always fun watching brokers and carriers and vendors and tech companies and factors, kind of just break bread together and have a meal and sing together. That we're going to have a battle of the bands.
Some better than others.
Yeah, some better than others. Yeah, most of them, actually all of them probably better than me. But we're going to have a battle of the bands event going on the last night. We're going to rent out the House of Blues in Disney Springs. We're going to bring in a band. And so if you have a musical talent, I'm really excited about this. If you have a musical talent, if you can sing, or if you can rip on a guitar, or if you can smash the drums, this is your moment to
we
shine.
might have to find some talent within our organization and make sure that they show up for this, just to help it a little bit.
Absolutely. So, well, Rob, as always, thank you, my friend. Always good talking with you. And I have to get to Kansas City sometime soon. I haven't been there in a while, so
come on down. Come see all of us.
Will do.
All right.
Well, that's all for today, everyone. Thank you very much again for joining us. If you've liked what you've heard, if you found it valuable, go ahead and give us a like or subscribe, or share it with another transportation professional in your network. The best networks are grown organically. To learn more about the Broker Carrier Summit, you can go over to our website, www.brokercarriersummit.com. If you want to learn more about the BCS Freight Network, you can join us at www.bcsfreightnetwork.com. Until next time, everybody, take care.